People always ask me if I get jealous. My husband Daniel is objectively attractive. 6'2", dark hair that actually looks good when he runs his hands through it during Zoom calls, and one of those faces that photographs well from every angle. He's also brilliant at his job, which means he gets attention. Lots of it. But here's the thing about being married to someone like Daniel. He makes it incredibly easy not to worry. From day one of his new position at the tech firm downtown, he walked into that office and announced to his entire team, in his characteristically straightforward way, that he was married. Not engaged, not in a serious relationship, married. When he told me about it that evening, I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my wine. "You actually led with that?" I asked, curling up on our couch beside him. "Of course I did," he said, looking genuinely confused by my amusement. "Why wouldn't I?" Most people ease into personal information, Daniel. Build rapport first, maybe mention it casually after a few weeks. He shrugged, that small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "I don't see the point in being unclear about boundaries. Saves everyone time and awkwardness later. That's my husband, efficient even in social situations. And honestly, it's one of the things I love most about him. He's not the type who enjoys ambiguity or playing games. What you see is exactly what you get. So when he started his new role, I wasn't worried. Not even slightly. Daniel has this quality about him where you can tell immediately that he's taken. It's not just the wedding ring, though he never takes it off. It's something in his demeanor. The way he carries himself. He's polite, professional, friendly even, but there's a wall there. A clear line that says, I'm not available, and I'm not interested in pretending otherwise. I went back to my own work, managing a small boutique consulting firm from our home office, and didn't give his new job another thought beyond asking about his day over dinner. That lasted about 3 weeks. "So, there's this new woman on the team," Daniel mentioned one Thursday evening as he chopped vegetables for our stir-fry. His tone was casual, but I caught something underneath it. Amusement, maybe, or mild exasperation. "Oh?" I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing a client proposal. "Megan started 2 weeks ago. She's got this whole innocent act going on." He paused, considering his words. "Actually, I'm not sure if it's an act or if she genuinely thinks she's being subtle." I closed my laptop, suddenly much more interested in this conversation. "Subtle about what?" "About hitting on married men." He glanced at me with a wry smile. "She knows I have a wife. I've mentioned you multiple times. The entire team knows. But she keeps doing this thing where she pretends she forgot or acts surprised when someone brings it up again." "The old 'I'm so scatterbrained' routine," I said, nodding. "Classic move. How's that working out for her?" "Not well." Daniel scraped the vegetables into the hot pan where they sizzled satisfyingly. "But she's persistent. I'll give her that." Over the next few weeks, Daniel would come home with updates. They were always delivered with this bemused tone, like he was narrating a nature documentary about a particularly ineffective predator. "Today, Megan asked me what I usually do on weekends," he told me one evening. In this very deliberate way, like she was fishing for information about whether I'd be free to hang out. "And what did you say?" "I told her I spend all my time with my wife." He grinned. "You should have seen her face. She did this thing where her smile just froze for a second before she recovered and changed the subject." I had to admire his consistency. Every attempt Megan made, Daniel deflected with the same polite, immovable courtesy. It would have been entertaining if it weren't so predictable. "You know what's funny?" I said one night as we were getting ready for bed. "She probably thinks she's being really clever and subtle. But here in America, everyone can see right through that routine. It's transparent as glass." "Most of the team has noticed," Daniel confirmed, pulling his shirt over his head. "A couple of the guys have made jokes about it. Nobody's fooled." "Does she know they're making jokes?" "I don't think so. She seems genuinely convinced she's pulling off this innocent act." I brushed my teeth, contemplating this. In movies and TV shows, this is where the wife is supposed to get anxious or territorial. Maybe show up at the office unannounced or start checking her husband's phone. But the thing about trust is that it either exists or it doesn't. You can't half trust someone. And I trusted Daniel completely. Besides, I was curious to see how this would play out. The real entertainment started about a month into Megan's employment. Daniel began sharing more specific incidents, and each one was more ridiculous than the last. She commented today that I must get tired of being managed by my wife, he told me, his tone dripping with sarcasm. In front of the whole team during lunch? Managed? I raised an eyebrow. What did you say? I told her my wife doesn't manage me. I simply prioritize her above everything else, because that's what married people do. He paused. The table got really quiet after that. Tom actually choked on his coffee. I burst out laughing. Poor Megan, that must have stung. She tried to backtrack, saying she didn't mean it that way, but the damage was done. Even she looked embarrassed. But Megan didn't give up. If anything, the public humiliation seemed to make her more determined. Today, she accidentally on purpose brushed her hand against mine when we were both reaching for the coffee pot, Daniel reported the following week, making air quotes around accidentally on purpose. How very convenient. I stepped back immediately and told her I maintain physical distance with women who aren't my wife. He shook his head. It came out harsher than I meant it to, but honestly, Emily, the touching had to stop. Was she offended? She looked shocked, actually, like she genuinely didn't expect me to call it out so directly. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated now. The thing is, I'm trying to be professional, but she keeps creating these situations where I have to be blunt, and then I come off as the rude one. You're not rude, I assured him. You're clear, there's a difference. And honestly, she needs that clarity since she's apparently immune to subtle hints. The next incident made me actively involved, though Megan didn't know it. She started texting me after hours, Daniel said, showing me his phone one evening. Look at this. Questions about work stuff that could easily wait until tomorrow or be asked in the team channel. I read through the messages. They were ostensibly about projects and deadlines, but the subtext was obvious. The carefully casual tone, the exclamation points, the way she'd add personal observations that had nothing to do with work. What have you been saying back? Nothing, usually. Or if I do respond, I post the answer in the team Slack channel instead of replying to her directly. He grimaced. She stopped after I did that twice. I think she got the message. Did she, though? As it turned out, no. Megan did not get the message. The situation escalated in a way I hadn't anticipated, though in hindsight, I probably should have seen it coming. Daniel came home one evening with his jaw tight and his shoulders tense. I recognized that look. Something had happened that actually bothered him. Okay, what did she do now? I asked, pouring him a glass of whiskey without being asked. He took it gratefully, downing half in one swallow. She tried the whole, I'm not like other women thing today. I winced. Oh no. Oh yes. He set down his glass with more force than necessary. During a team meeting, she made this comment about how, if she had a boyfriend, she'd never be the type to control him or keep tabs on him. How she believes in freedom and trust. In front of everyone, the entire team, all 12 of us. He looked at me with something like helplessness in his eyes. Emily, I didn't know what to say. If I called her out, I'd look defensive. If I ignored it, it would seem like I agreed. So what did you do? I asked her to clarify what she meant by that, in the most neutral tone I could manage. A small smile finally cracked through his frustration. She backpedaled so fast she nearly tripped over her own words, started saying she was speaking generally, not about anyone specific. But the implication was clear. Crystal clear. She was basically saying she'd be a better partner than you. He reached for my hand. Which is insane, because she doesn't know you at all. She's never met you. And even if she had, the entire premise is delusional. I squeezed his hand, thinking, this had gone beyond awkward flirtation. Megan had crossed a line by implying something negative about me, about our marriage. And she'd done it publicly, which meant Daniel's coworkers now had this uncomfortable information floating around. Did anyone say anything? I asked. Tom looked uncomfortable. A few others suddenly found their laptops very interesting. Daniel sighed. But here's the thing that bothers me most. Half the team is married or in serious relationships. Their wives and girlfriends are all part of our social circle now. We had a barbecue at Mike's place last month. Everyone brought their partners. So Megan's comments weren't just about us? Exactly. She basically implied that all the wives and girlfriends are controlling and jealous, and she'd be different. He rubbed his face. It was insulting to everyone, not just you. An idea was forming in my mind. A deliciously simple idea. Daniel, I said slowly, has anyone recorded any of these incidents, like on their phone or laptop? He looked at me curiously. Probably. We record most meetings for people who can't attend. And people are always on their phones during lunch. Why? Because I think it's time we let the other wives and girlfriends know what kind of person Megan is. I smiled. Not through gossip or drama, just by showing them the truth. Understanding dawned on his face. You want me to share evidence? I want you to give the people in your social circle relevant information about someone who's been insulting their relationships. I leaned back, feeling satisfied with this plan. Not in a vindictive way, just factual documentation. That's actually brilliant. He pulled out his phone, already thinking through logistics. We have a group chat, all the guys and their partners. We use it to plan social stuff. Perfect. Next time Megan says something inappropriate, particularly something that disparages committed relationships in general, make sure it's recorded. Then share it in that group chat. I sipped my wine. Let the truth speak for itself. You're not worried this will seem petty? Petty would be spreading rumors or making things up. This is just information sharing. I met his eyes. And honestly, Daniel, if some woman was regularly insulting my relationship and hitting on you at work, I'd want to know. I bet the other wives and girlfriends feel the same way. He nodded slowly. You're right. They would want to know. We didn't have to wait long for the perfect opportunity. 3 days later, the team went out for lunch at a Mexican restaurant downtown to celebrate closing a major deal. Daniel texted me beforehand to let me know he'd be out for a couple hours, and I wished him a good time. I was in the middle of a video call with a client when my phone buzzed with another message. Daniel. She just did it, got it on video, sending to the group chat now. I wrapped up my call as quickly as professionally possible, then opened our shared group chat. Daniel had indeed posted a video with a simple caption. Thought everyone should see this? I pressed play. The video showed the team sitting around a large table, plates of enchiladas and tacos scattered between them. The mood seemed jovial. Someone was telling a story that had everyone laughing. Then Megan's voice cut through, clear and bright. Can I ask you guys something? She sounded casual, friendly even. Don't you ever feel like having a wife or girlfriend means you're constantly being managed? Like you can't just do what you want? The laughter died. Several people looked uncomfortable. The camera, I realized, was positioned low, probably Daniel's phone propped against something on the table. His hands were visible at the edge of the frame, completely still. Tom, who I'd met at that barbecue Daniel mentioned, cleared his throat. That's not really how it works, Megan. I'm just saying, she continued, undeterred by the sudden tension. If I were dating someone, I'd never be that way. I'd give them complete freedom. No checking in, no questions about where they are or who they're with. That's what real trust looks like, right? The silence was deafening. Someone shifted in their seat. Another person reached for their water glass. Then Daniel's voice, measured and calm. That's an interesting perspective, Megan, but I think you might be misunderstanding what partnership actually means. My wife doesn't manage me or restrict my freedom. We communicate because we care about each other. We share our lives because that's what married people do. It's not about control. It's about connection. Even through the phone screen, I could feel the temperature drop several degrees. Megan laughed, a high, brittle sound. I didn't mean it like that. I was just making conversation. Were you? This was from Mike, whose wife Sarah I'd spent an hour talking to about renovating their kitchen at that same barbecue. His voice had an edge to it. Because it kind of sounded like you were implying something pretty specific about all of our relationships. The video ended there, Daniel probably stopping the recording before things got more awkward. But the group chat was already exploding. Sarah, is this the same woman you mentioned last week, Mike? The one who keeps making comments? Tom's girlfriend, Jen? How long has this been going on, Mike? About a month, maybe more. Another wife, Linda. And nobody thought to mention this before now? Daniel typed quickly. I didn't want to cause drama, but after today, I thought everyone should know what's been happening. This wasn't an isolated incident. My phone rang. It was Sarah. Emily, hi. I hope this isn't weird that I'm calling, but I just saw Daniel's video and I'm furious. Her voice was tight with anger. Mike told me there was some new woman at work who was a bit flirty, but he made it sound harmless. This isn't harmless. No, I agreed. It's not. She's basically been insulting all of us, saying we're controlling and jealous, implying she'd be better for our partners because she'd give them freedom, whatever that means. I know. Daniel's been dealing with it for weeks. And you're not worried? Sarah sounded genuinely curious now, the anger fading slightly. About Daniel? No, he's made it very clear where his boundaries are. I trust him completely. I paused. But I do think Megan needs to face some consequences for her behavior. Not from me, though. From the people she's actually been disrespecting. Sarah laughed, a sharp, satisfied sound. Oh, she's about to. Mike and I need to have a serious conversation tonight about why he didn't think this was important enough to tell me about properly. And I'm guessing I'm not the only wife who feels that way. She wasn't. Over the next several hours, the group chat filled with messages from various wives and girlfriends who were now fully aware of what had been happening. Some were angry at Megan. Some were angry at their partners for downplaying the situation. All of them were united in their opinion that this had gone too far. What's going to happen now? I asked Daniel that evening when he finally got home, looking exhausted. Honestly, I'm not sure. He collapsed onto the couch beside me. Several of the guys got phone calls during the afternoon. Tom left work early because Jen was so upset. Mike looked like he was heading to the doghouse for the foreseeable future. They should have told their partners earlier. I know. I think they thought they were protecting them from unnecessary worry. Or they genuinely didn't realize how bad it was. He shook his head. But now everyone knows, and Megan's behavior is fully exposed. Has she said anything? She left right after lunch, just got up and walked out. Hasn't been back since. He looked at me with something like awe. Emily, how did you know this would work? Because the truth is powerful, I said simply. Megan could make all the innocent faces she wanted, but once people actually saw and heard what she was doing, there was no way to spin it. No way to make it seem harmless or friendly. The next day, Daniel texted me from work. Daniel, HR called Megan in for a meeting this morning. Me, that was fast. Daniel, 3 separate formal complaints were filed yesterday from 3 different coworkers. Me, wow. Daniel, she's meeting with them now. We'll update you. An hour later, another text came through. Daniel, she resigned, effective immediately. I stared at the message for a long moment. I hadn't actually expected that outcome. I thought maybe she'd get a warning or be moved to a different team. But resignation was decisive. Me, how do you feel about that? Daniel, relieved honestly. It was getting exhausting, constantly having to redirect conversations and maintain those boundaries. I was starting to dread going to work. Me, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was affecting you that much. Daniel, I didn't want you to worry, but yeah, it was stressful. Not because I was tempted or anything, just because navigating that level of persistence while staying professional was draining. That evening, he came home with flowers. Sunflowers, my favorite, bright and cheerful in the gray November weather. What are these for? I asked, though I was already smiling as I took them. For being the smartest person I know. He pulled me close, kissing my forehead. You handled that entire situation perfectly. You didn't get jealous or dramatic. You didn't make me feel guilty or question my judgment. You just waited for the right moment and let the truth do the work. I trusted you, I said simply. That was the easy part. The rest was just strategy. The other guys have been texting me all day, he continued, following me into the kitchen where I filled a vase with water. They all want to know how I got so lucky. What did you tell them? That I married someone who knows the difference between reacting and responding. He leaned against the counter, watching me arrange the flowers. Someone who understands that sometimes the smartest move is patience. I placed the vase on our dining table, stepping back to admire how the sunflowers caught the late afternoon light. You know what's funny? Megan probably thought she was being so clever, playing the long game, acting innocent, slowly creating doubt and opportunities. She had this whole strategy. And she never stood a chance. Not against honesty, she didn't. I turned to face him. That's the thing about manipulation. It only works in the shadows when people don't have complete information. But the second you shine a light on it, the second you show people exactly what's happening, it falls apart. Daniel pulled me into a proper embrace, the kind where you can feel someone's heartbeat against your own. I love you, he said quietly. So much. I love you too. I pulled back just enough to see his face. And for the record, I was never worried, not for a single second. Even when she was implying she'd be better for me than you? Especially then, I smiled, because anyone who actually knew me would understand how absurd that claim was. And anyone who actually knew you would know you'd never be interested in someone like her. We stood there in our kitchen, surrounded by the comfortable familiarity of our shared life, the coffee maker that we'd argued about buying because it was too expensive, then used every single day. The mismatched mugs we'd collected from various trips. The pictures on the fridge, held up by magnets from 3 different continents. Evidence of a real relationship built on actual connection and trust. Later that night, after dinner and a movie we only half watched, curled up together on our couch, Daniel said something that made me laugh so hard I nearly fell off the cushions. You know what Tom said today? He said next time his girlfriend asks him why he can't handle problems like I do, he's going to tell her it's because he doesn't have Emily as his secret weapon. Secret weapon? I raised an eyebrow. His words, not mine. Daniel grinned. Though I can't say he's wrong. I didn't do anything, I protested. I just suggested you document the truth. You knew exactly what would happen when that truth was shared. You understood the dynamics at play, the social pressure, the way the other partners would react. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. That wasn't luck or coincidence. That was you being brilliant. I nestled closer to him, feeling content and satisfied. Maybe, or maybe it was just common sense. Either way, the right person left and we can go back to our normal life. Our boring, peaceful, drama-free normal life, Daniel agreed happily. Exactly. I closed my eyes, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. Though I have to admit, there was something satisfying about watching it all unfold. Seeing justice happen naturally, without having to force anything. Karma in action. More like consequences in action, I corrected. Megan made choices. Those choices had results. Not because anyone was out to get her, but because her behavior was genuinely inappropriate, and people finally had enough information to respond appropriately. Daniel was quiet for a moment, and I thought he might be falling asleep. Then he said very softly, "Thank you for trusting me through all of that, for not making me feel like I had to prove my loyalty or defend myself to you." I opened my eyes, looking up at him. Daniel, I know who you are. I know who we are. Some woman at your office acting inappropriately doesn't change that. It doesn't threaten what we have. Not everyone would feel that way. Maybe not, but we're not everyone. I smiled. We're us, and that's more than enough. The next morning, Daniel went to work in better spirits than I'd seen in weeks. When he came home that evening, he reported that the entire atmosphere at the office had shifted. People were relaxed again, laughing easier, not walking on eggshells. It's like everyone can finally breathe, he told me. We didn't realize how much tension she was creating until it was gone. Over the following weeks, life returned to normal. Daniel enjoyed his job again. The team bonded over their shared relief that the situation had resolved itself. The group chat returned to its usual purpose of planning barbecues and game nights instead of dealing with workplace drama. And Megan, I heard through Daniel that she'd moved to a different company across town. I hoped, for everyone's sake, that she'd learned something from the experience. Though honestly, I didn't spend much time thinking about her. I had better things to focus on, like the vacation Daniel and I were planning for the spring. Like the new client who'd just signed a 6-month contract with my firm. Like the 1,000 small, mundane, wonderful details of a life built with someone you trust completely. One evening, about a month after everything had settled, Sarah and Mike came over for dinner. As Sarah and I worked together in the kitchen making pasta while the guys attempted to assemble our new patio furniture outside, she brought up the incident. "I owe you an apology," she said, carefully measuring olive oil into a pan. "For what?" I looked up from where I was chopping basil. "Forever thinking Mike was exaggerating about how secure you and Daniel are together?" She shook her head, smiling ruefully. "When he first told me about Megan, he said you wouldn't care because you and Daniel were solid. I thought he was being naive. Or that maybe you just hadn't heard the full story yet. And now? Now I understand. You weren't unbothered because you were ignorant. You were unbothered because you actually trust your husband." She paused, stirring the oil as it heated. "That's rare, Emily. Really rare." "I don't think it should be," I said thoughtfully. "If you can't trust your partner, what's the point? You're just living in constant anxiety, waiting for them to mess up." "But how do you get there? To that level of trust?" I considered the question while I finished chopping the herbs. "I think it starts with choosing the right person, someone who shows you through their actions consistently that they're trustworthy. Daniel has never given me a reason to doubt him, not once in all the years we've been together. But people change. Circumstances change." "They do," I agreed. "But core character doesn't. Daniel's the same person he was when we met. He's grown, we've both grown, but his fundamental values haven't changed. He's honest, he's direct, he respects boundaries." I scraped the basil into a bowl. "Those aren't things that shift based on who's flirting with him at work." Sarah was quiet for a moment, watching the oil shimmer in the pan. Then she said, "I wish I had your confidence." "You do, though," I pointed out. "You filed a complaint against Megan. You stood up for your relationship. Only after seeing that video. Only after having proof. So, you still did it. You still took action when it mattered." I smiled at her. "That's what confidence looks like, Sarah. Not never having doubts, but knowing what to do when situations arise that need to be addressed." She laughed, adding garlic to the pan where it sizzled fragrant and sharp. "When did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I'm just a woman who got lucky enough to marry someone who makes trust easy." I glanced out the window where Daniel and Mike were now arguing good-naturedly about whether they'd attached a table leg upside down. Though I'm starting to question his furniture assembly skills. We both laughed, and the conversation moved on to lighter topics. But I thought about what Sarah had said, about confidence and trust and security. And I realized that while I'd handled the Megan situation well, it wasn't because I'd done anything particularly special. It was because I'd chosen well in the first place. That night, after Sarah and Mike had gone home and the patio furniture was finally, probably correctly assembled, Daniel and I stood on our back deck looking at the stars. The city lights dimmed them somewhat, but you could still see the brightest ones if you looked carefully enough. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel asked, his arm around my waist. "About how sometimes the hardest thing is also the simplest thing," I said. "Which is?" "Trust, just plain trust, without conditions or tests or backup plans." I leaned into him. "We make it so complicated, building in all these protections and safety measures. But really, it just comes down to choosing someone you trust and then actually trusting them." That's very philosophical for a Thursday night. Sarah got me thinking earlier. I turned to face him. She apologized for doubting us, for thinking maybe I was naive about the whole Megan thing. "You're the opposite of naive." "I know, but I think people sometimes confuse trust with ignorance. Like if you're not worried, you must not understand the situation." I shook my head. "But I understood perfectly. I just knew it wasn't my problem to solve. It was Megan's problem to stop creating." Daniel pulled me closer. "You know what I realized through all of this?" "What?" "That we're really lucky. Not everyone gets to have what we have. This ease, this confidence in each other. Some people spend their whole lives looking for it and never find it." "We are lucky," I agreed. "But we also work at it. We communicate, we maintain boundaries, we choose each other every single day." "True." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "I'm glad you're my person." "Emily." "I'm glad you're mine too." I stood on my toes to kiss him. "Now come on, it's cold out here, and I think there's ice cream in the freezer." As we headed back inside, our house warm and bright against the dark night. I felt that particular kind of happiness that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be, with exactly the right person. The whole situation with Megan had been bizarre, uncomfortable, and ultimately unnecessary. But it had also reinforced something I already knew, that Daniel and I had built something solid, something that couldn't be shaken by outside interference or manipulation. And in the end, I hadn't needed to lift a finger, hadn't needed to confront anyone, make any dramatic gestures, or prove anything to anybody. The truth had been enough. The truth had been more than enough. Because here's what I'd learned. What I already knew deep down but saw proven again: you don't beat manipulation with more manipulation. You don't beat games with counter games. You beat them with transparency, with truth, with the simple act of letting people see reality clearly. Megan had counted on shadows and implications, on confusion and ambiguity. She'd thought that by being subtle and playing innocent, she could create opportunities without consequences. But light is stronger than shadow. Truth is stronger than manipulation. And a relationship built on actual trust is stronger than any attempt to undermine it. So I didn't have to do much of anything. I just had to wait for the right moment, suggest the right move, and let reality take care of the rest. Sometimes the best strategy is just patience and truth. Let people show you who they are. Let situations play out. Trust that good choices will lead to good outcomes and that bad behavior will eventually catch up with those who engage in it. In America, we have this saying, the truth will set you free. In this case, the truth set Megan free from a job where she was making everyone uncomfortable, and it set Daniel free from having to constantly deflect inappropriate advances. And me? I was already free. Free from worry, free from jealousy, free from the exhausting work of trying to control or monitor or protect something that didn't need protecting in the first place. Because when you trust someone completely, when you know in your bones that they're exactly who they say they are, you don't need to play defense. You can just live your life, secure in the knowledge that whatever challenges arise, you'll face them together. That's the real ending to this story. Not the drama of Megan leaving or the satisfaction of watching her manipulations fail. Those are just plot points. The real ending is Daniel and me standing in our kitchen late at night, eating ice cream straight from the container and laughing about something silly. It's the ordinary, beautiful, comfortable life we've built together. It's the trust that makes every day easier, every challenge more manageable, every joy more complete. Megan was just a footnote, a minor disruption in an otherwise happy story. And now she's gone, and we're still here, still strong, still us. Sometimes that's all the happy ending you need.